Welcome to OAA Now, your home for Oakland Activities Association news and information. Here's your host, Sammy Taramina.
Welcome to OAA Now, Sammy Taramina, blogger of the Dragon's Den, and I'm also one of the hosts of Between Taraminas here on ONTV. Of course, we got playoffs here coming up here. We got the Division State playoffs here, no doubt. When you look at teams around the state of Michigan, you got 256 teams that qualify for the playoffs, and also you got 9 OAA teams that are going to be in for the postseason. But we're going to recap each game from last week, from Week 9. No doubt, a lot of shockers that came through here. I mean, like, a couple of them, a lot of surprises. I mean, like, but heading into the off season, a lot of teams are going to have some questions heading into the off season. Of course, the first game we're going to talk about here from last week's games is Dearborn Heights Robichaud 22, Berkeley 16. That game was really tight. That was really close at Hurley Field. You got to give the Bears credit for fighting back in that one. But Dearborn Heights Robichaud, they're a good team. They finished the year 8-1. You know, I think they're in Division 4. Take a look at my laptop here a minute. Yeah, they were. I mean, like, so it was an interesting game there. I mean, like, huge win for Dearborn Heights Robichaud. I mean, like, and another game here that I was surprised seeing was Auburn Hills Avondale. Of course, Avondale suspended 5 players, which was a kind of a shock. I mean, like, here's a team, in my opinion, that had a chance to go to the playoffs. All they had to do was win and get in, and they get torched 63-20 by Waterford Kettering. I don't know what happened in that incident over there, but it was very unfortunate, especially for a team like Avondale. I mean, like, because they had Josh Howman, they had Travis James, and now they're not going to see the playoffs this season. It's unfortunate. Josh Howman's going to have a very good career at Cincinnati heading into the off season, but it kind of when you suspending players, especially for the last week of the season, it's stupid that they did that, but it's an unfortunate situation. No doubt, when you look at the situation in that game, especially Avondale just needing to win to get in, they would have had the automatic 6. And one of those teams I thought would have went out if Avondale would have won, especially in Division 3. Whereas that district, that division is going to be a very tough matchup, no doubt about that. When I look at the other games, North Farmington beating Troy Athens 28-24. That game really surprised me because of the fact that I thought the Red Hawks were going to beat the Raiders in this game, but I was kind of surprised at North Farmington the way that they played in that game. Of course, they had a lot of senior defense. I mean, like senior experience-led defense. I mean, like North Farmington's going to be a very young team next year. So I'm not sure how at the OA meetings they're going to look. I mean, like, but a game that surprised me, of course, Clarkson and Harrison, that was 31-24. I thought, in my opinion, Clarkson was going to roll in that game. But Harrison found a way. They tied it up. Clarkson had to score a touchdown with 3 minutes left to win that game. And for Clarkson, I think they're rolling in right now. They're the top dogs of Division 1. When you look at that game here, I mean, like, we'll go over previews of the OA teams in the playoffs in a minute and how I'll analyze them, so we'll see what happens there. I mean, for Clarkson and for Harrison, of course, it's very unique. I wasn't surprised Oxford whooped Oak Park 49-14 because Oak Park had a lot of motivation there in that game. The Wildcats, of course, they had this coming to them. I mean, and basically now Oxford basically got sentenced in the playoffs, having to play Clarkson in the first round. That's not going to be an easy game, but for Oak Park, it's a huge win. They're in an interesting district, but I'll go over the districts later on, like I said. It's kind of also, but for Oak Park, it's a huge win for Coach Greg Carter and his staff. It ensures them of a home game for sure. And another game, especially in the first round, and they're in the same district, of course, as Southfield and Detroit Martin Luther King. Game, when I look at the futures game, I look at Lake Orion, Rochester, Adams. Adams winning that one 30-26. I was disappointed with the Dragons' defense all season long. I mean, when you look at this team look at Adams. Both these teams, I think, are playoff teams next year for sure. But with Adams, you got Kyle Wood, their quarterback. He's legit. He's very good. The question for Adams is going to be next year, especially who's going to be that power runner, who's going to take over for Clarence Baraklocks, who's leaving Adams because he's going to be graduating next year. That's going to be the question I think Adams is going to have. You're going to have the quarterback in Kyle Wood. On Lake Orion's case, this defense can't be any worse like they were this year. They could not get a stop this year. I mean, this is your first losing season since 1996. You're out of the playoffs the first time since 2000. I mean, there's nothing good you can say about this team right now, especially with the way that they played in that game. In the game against Adams, they showed, I thought, they were down 10-7. It was a good football game. It was a very good game. But the problem is, this team can't defend anybody. They don't pressure anybody. They have no linebackers. They don't, their secondary is not very good. Don't give me the excuse they're young, because next year most of that group is back. But you're going to be replacing, you got some, if this team can't develop a pressure physical linebacker, then I don't know what to say. That's the only reason why, if Lake Orion will somehow do that, I think they're going to be fine. You have the quarterback, I think, in Max Horner for this team. But the two keys I think is gotta make sure, if you're dragging Coach Chris Bell, is you gotta basically improve the wide receiver game, develop a passing game around it, to balance it out, because you ran a lot last year, and you gotta basically and also, defense, you know what I mean? There's gonna be a lot of criticism. I know it's gonna be expected, but the question is, can this team? And the schedule next year is favorable for this team. 6 home games, you know what I mean? So they got nowhere to go but up. You know what I mean? If they don't go up, it's gonna be a disappointment. Next game here, and they also got Keith Fields coming back also. So I think Keith Fields is gonna get a lot more time. I think if you move players like Dallas Cleary to the line, I think that makes sense. But this team's got to get better quick. You know what I mean? We got to get better quick. Game that really surprised, one of the games was West Bloomfield Southfield. I thought that the Lakers, no doubt, played well in this game. They beat Southfield 16-13. I went with Southfield last week. Thinking that, I thought Trishan Jackson was going to test the DBs, and he did. He give credit to him and Michael King for doing well in that one. You got Obi Jackson. And of course, you got that line play with West Bloomfield, but West Bloomfield got rewarded, I thought, in the draws, but it was a good win to beat Southfield. West Bloomfield, they were World Warriors this year, no doubt. They went into Oxford, beat them up pretty bad. Went to Lake Orion, beat them up pretty bad in their homecoming. Went to Stony Creek and beat them, and then you go into Southfield and win. Those are 4 top places to win in the OA. You win in those 4 places, that is going to be huge for your confidence, and West Point is still going to be a good team next year, no doubt about that. When looking at it here, and looking at the other games, of course, Wall Lake Central 38, Farmington 32. Farmington didn't give up in that game. They battled back in that game with Wall Lake Central. Wall Lake Central, very good quarterback led by Nate Crum. It was a tough loss for Farmington, but I don't know. But you're going to really get tested, especially in playoffs. And Farmington's not been very good against top-notch competition. They've been 0-2 against some very good, against top-notch competition. No disrespect, no offense to Blue, but Harrison and Wall Lake Central are 2 different animals compared to what they're going to get in the first round of the playoffs. It's not going to be an easy game. I got to give props to Beverly Hills Willie Groves for doing all right against Waterford. Waterford's a team that's a very good team. They only lost 49-43. In that game, that was high scoring. It was a highly entertaining affair, you know what I mean? And I think the MHSAA committee looked at that and gave Groves a home game out of it. Basically, when you look at it, it's unfortunate. I mean, like for Groves not to win that game, but but they're gonna be they've lost 3 in a row coming in. They got a big one in the playoffs with Berkeley. Of course, it's not gonna be an easy game. We'll just see what happens there in that one. Other games, Birmingham City home beating Bloomfield Hills 38-21. That was kind of expected there. I mean, like it was Nate Emery's final game as a Blackhawk. You know what I mean? He's had a good career. You know what I mean? Had a good career. Troy blowing out Royal Oak 50-7. Royal Oak should be in the blue next year. If they're not, there's gonna be like a panic button that's gonna be extremely to the extreme. Westland John Glenn knocking off Southfield 8 to 48-13. That was expected there. Westland John Glenn, they're okay. They're not great, but when you look at those games, I mean, like it was a shocker to see that that they just went into Lathrop Village and just destroyed them pretty bad. No doubt about that. Other game, Almont 63, Ferndale 16. Almont, of course, very good team in Division 5. They're gonna be a tough out. I mean, like I think Almont's they're a sleeper to watch in that division. Ferndale, of course, they're a little young. You know what I mean? Like next year, they're going to be back. They're going to be loaded. I think they're going to be talented. They're going to compete in the blue, no doubt. I think they're going to compete. But Eric Royal, you got to give him props, especially what he did. He's done a very nice job over there at Ferndale in his first season there. It was a tough situation over there in Eagle Country, and then Royal's done a very nice job. They won some games. They had a nice win over Livonia Clarenceville to start the season off, and that was the beginning of a huge transition. I think it's hard to turn a program around. You know what I mean? It's hard to turn a program around after 1 year. And I got to give props to Eric Royal for what he did over there at Ferndale. Speaking of turning around, of course, it was a tough year for Kyle Riley and Hazel Park. I mean, you look at the kids. I didn't think he had at least 20, 25 kids. I mean, like playing over there at Hazel Park. I mean, like, and then you play your last game of the year against Grove Seal, and just like you do not stand a chance against them. You get 63-0. Good God. I mean, it's unfortunate for the Vikings. But I think Kyle Riley's got a lot of work to do ahead of him. To get that program back. It's not a year one fix. You know what I mean? I think the one at Ferndale, you know what I mean? I think Ferndale right now in their coaching development is right now ahead right now of both Hazel Park and even Pontiac in that situation because Ferndale's got some talent over there. Hazel Park and Pontiac, those teams, they're going to develop some talent. But you never know at Pontiac, of course, with the ongoing financial situation that's going on over there. But if they can do a good job there, I think they'll fix the program up, and I think they'll be fine heading into the off season. Of course, another one here that was very unique was Stony Creek 42, Rochester 10. It was a tough situation for the Cougars, especially what really hurt them was losing the Lake Orion over at Stony Creek. That really hurt them and their chance of getting the playoffs. They got the Adams win over Orion. That was huge for them, but they didn't have enough playoff points to get in, and it showed in that game. Whereas I think Brad Zuby, he's the right guy there. He's done very well over there. He's a masterful coach. He's a family man. He's a good man. You know what I mean? This is what I look at with Stony Creek, especially with what he had over there this year. I mean, like, it's a perfect situation for him. It's unfortunate this year that Cougars are going to miss the playoffs, you know what I mean? But it wouldn't surprise me next year if Stony Creek they're going to be a threat, you know what I mean? You're going to have a favorable schedule, you know what I mean? I mean, with the exception of having to they got to go to Lake Orion, they got to go to West Bloomfield next year. They have Oxford coming there. You know what I mean? That's a start. I mean, I think Oxford's got the murderer's row of everybody next year, especially when for them, they got to play at Romeo. They got to play at Orion, at Stony Creek, at West Bloomfield. Goodness gracious. I mean, Oxford's going to basically play the schedule that Lake Orion had this year. and that's and that's going to be, and that's not a good situation right there for Oxford. I mean, but especially when you look at the off season, if there's two teams I think has got to do well in the off season, I think it's Lake Orion's one of them, and I think Rochester Adams is the other one. Also, Stony Creek is another one because like those three teams I think are going to work their tails off along with every other team in the OAA heading in the off season. And the off season alone could decide where you go and you don't go. You know, I just think when I look at the schedule, how it was set, you know what I mean? Like, you know, playing your open games week one, you know, when I look at that game with Lake Orion, Chippewa Valley, I didn't think that was a good matchup at all for Lake Orion that first game. Having to play Chippewa Valley, it ended up costing them dearly. And then that loss to Oxford, I think also cost them dearly, you know what I mean, getting into the playoffs this year. I mean, like, we'll see what happens, no doubt, when it comes to the offseason. Of course, we got girls basketball, we got basketball season, wrestling season. You got track season, you got baseball, softball, etc. coming up. You know, so we'll see what happens there. But a lot of questions do linger, especially heading in the off season for all these teams. We'll go over that probably in later November once all the OA teams are either eliminated or state champion. You know, and there are a couple candidates in the playoffs that could be state champions. We'll go over their matchups coming up in the second half of the show here on OAA Now.
We own a Habitat home.
I love working on my Habitat home.
Soy dueño de una casa de Habitat.
My neighbor is a Habitat homeowner.
Being a Habitat homeowner has changed our lives.
My mortgage payment for Habitat is less than what I pay for rent.
Habitat for Humanity of Oakland County currently has homes available with mortgage payments lower than most rent payments. If you or someone you know needs decent and affordable housing, call 248-338-1843 or visit our website at habitatoakland.org.
Welcome back to OAA Now. Sammy, blogger of the Dragon's Den, and one of the hosts of Between Two Meets here on ON TV. Of course, we got the districts for the OA teams that are still left in the playoffs. You got we're gonna go first to Region 4, District 1. Of course, that is a district where you got where we're gonna preview each team. We got Berkeley and Groves Week 1 over there at Beverly Hills. I mean, like it was a really good game last time they met, 32-29. Berkeley beat Groves in that one, and of course it's a motivating game for Groves because I think that was one of the games that started their 3-game losing streak was that loss week 7 to Berkeley, and of course in that game, you know, there was like a lot of things that went wrong. Groves should have won that game by 2 touchdowns. When you look at it here, they had Berkeley beaten a couple times. They had a touchdown called back in that one. When I look at this game with Berkeley and Grove, on Berkeley's case, of course, you know, you're riding with some confidence, but you're not riding much after losing 2 straight games. You know what I mean? Berkeley's lost 2 straight games. Groves has lost 3 straight games. But Groves somehow ended up getting the home game here because of playoff points. And it's unfortunate, I mean, because when you look at Groves' wins, I mean, like, they beat, well, Seaholm, you know what I mean? They're decent, but Seaholm was one of the teams Groves beat in the non-leagues. I mean, like, and then they lost to Waterford Mott, whereas Berkeley, of course, lost to Dearborn Heights Robichaud. And they played, I don't have my sheet with me who they played. But they had a very interesting game week 1, and they didn't win that one. You know what I mean? So you got to give them props there. I mean, like, but you know that winner's going to basically have to deal with Birmingham Brother Rice in the first round, and that's in the district final, and that's going to be a huge problem, I think, for a team like a Berkeley or a Groves, especially if it's Berkeley. Then if Berkeley wins that game, then there's no doubt it's going to be a home rematch for Berkeley against Birmingham Brother Rice, because you know Brother Rice and Berkeley both share the same field, you know, and a lot of people are saying Birmingham Brother Rice, you know, they're one of the favorites to win that district because of the because there's no Lowell, no Muskegon in that side. They're in Division 3. I mean, but there is a team out west that could really threaten them, and that's either going to be Muskegon, Mona Shores, or Caledonia. And and there's also some teams in the side of the region that could really threaten Birmingham Brother Rice's reign as well. You got Oak Park, you got Southfield who could do it. That could definitely do it. And then and also what helped them was Harrison, of course, going more west, and that really helped a team like Birmingham Brother Rice because they don't have to see them, whereas a team like Muskegon, Mona Shores, and Caledonia might have to deal with Farmington Hills Harrison. So let's go to Region 2, District 3. Interesting matchup here. You got Southfield playing Detroit Martin Luther King. Of course, that game, Southfield won 22-19 last year, in 2012 against Martin Luther King. And they also won the regular season game at Wayne State, knocking them off in overtime 24-23. I think that was a score in that one, but I know Southfield won that game. It's a unique matchup for Southfield. A lot of athletes in this game. Of course, Detroit Martin Luther King, of course, they just went off lost a heartbreaker in the Detroit Public School League final to Detroit Cass Tech. You look at that game, with them King, the Crusaders, they got a good running game. They got a guy going to Michigan State. He's a very, very talented player. He's going to give Southfield problems. Southfield's line's not as physical as years past. Remember, last year Southfield had Malik McDonald. But remember, Southfield got upset in the first round by Birmingham Seaholm. So I'm not sure if there's any lingering effects there in that matchup. But for Southfield's sake, you got 4 Division I players in the secondary. And also most of them play wide receiver. So that's going to be a key right there. I think if Southfield can somehow attack Detroit Martin Luther King through the air, I just think they got a good chance to win that game. I like Southfield's matchup personally with Detroit Martin Luther King. Even though that game is in Detroit, I still like that matchup. And the other district game, on the other side, that winner's going to either take on Farmington or Oak Park. I think it's more likely to be Oak Park because this is a rivalry. Farmington, Oak Park. Farmington's won the last 2 games against the Knights. Greg Carter, of course, has been he was not happy when Farmington moved down the blue and Royal Oak got moved up to the white. And that, to me, that was one of the most craziest decisions I think the OAA has made all year. Move Farmington down from the white to the blue and move up Royal Oak and North Farmington to the white, which I think that was ridiculous. Farmington, of course, this is a team, they struggled last year, 2-7, but this is a team that should have moved up. If they would have moved up this year, Farmington, I think they missed the playoffs because I don't think Farmington would have beat Rochester Adams. I don't think they would have beaten Southfield. They definitely would not have beaten Oak Park or Harrison. They lost to Harrison week 1. That would have been 4 losses right there. I think Farmington was lucky enough to get in at 7-2. And now they're going to get the matchup they're going to get the matchup with Oak Park, which is going to be a really tough matchup, I think, for the Falcons. With the Knights, you got John Kelly, you got Chauncey Lohman, Junior McMillan. You got, I just think when you look at that game, I think Farmington's in a whole lot of trouble. And, of course, you got Des Kirkpatrick, of course. I'm a good wide receiver for Farmington. But, when I look at that game for Farmington, that's got disaster written all over that one when you look at that one. And, of course, the next game here we're going to mention here is, of course, you got Farmington Hills Harrison at Fenton. Of course, this is a rematch from 2012 in which Fenton won. The Fenton, of course, the Tigers, they won the Flint Metro League this year. Are also undefeated 9-0. But, this is a different Harrison team that they're going to see. With Harrison, you got Javon Shaw. They battled Clarkson to the death. They almost beat the Wolves. This is a team that almost beat the Wolves. I think that when you look at this game, I think Fenton's going to have everything that they're going to have to give it everything they got. It's a Saturday afternoon. It's a Saturday night game, actually. It's a 7 o'clock game. between Harrison and Fenton. Of course, Southfield King is Friday at 6. Farmington Oak Park is Friday at 6. Groves and Berkeley Saturday at 1. It's a mention for those games right there. Harrison and Fenton, of course, this is a unique game there. Rematch of 2012, like I said. But when you look at this game, I think Harrison's got a good shot, I think, to pull it off. I think Harrison could beat Fenton, but we'll just see what happens there. I mean, like, with that game, no doubt, it gives them a very unique matchup here. I mean, like, and that winner, of course, is going to be facing either South Lyon or Walled Lake Western. And those two teams are 8-1. And those two teams are playing each other. It's like a battle. It's like a Kensington Lakes Athletic Association rematch, no doubt. When you look at that game, it's basically telling me is that that's a tough district. You know what I mean? It's a tough district in there. And, of course, in that winner, we'll likely have to go and face either Muskegon Mona Shores or Caledonia. Those two teams are facing each other this week. And when you look at it here, I think when I look at that game, of course, between Muskegon Mona Shores and Caledonia, I think Caledonia is a better team here. But it'll be a good game. I mean, whoever wins that game, I think is going to do some damage. And I think they got a good shot, at possibly dethroning Birmingham Brother Rice. I think Birmingham Brother Rice is going to get beat. I mean, I really do. And then when I look at that district, that Division III, it's unique because you got Southfield against Detroit Martin Luther King. It's basically Detroit Martin Luther King's second best team in the PSL going up against 3 OAA teams. One of the OAA teams is going to get knocked out. You know what I mean? In either Farmington or Oak Park, you're going to be playing another OAA team. But if I'm King, I'm going to be shaking my boots this week, especially in Division II. You know what I mean? I mean, Harrison's going to have their hands full with Fenton, And then, of course, whoever wins that's going to get either South Lyon or Walled Lake Western. Okay, now on to Division I. Of course, you got Livonia Stevenson going against West Bloomfield. It's a rematch. It's a free match here since 2008, in which the Spartans beat the Lakers pretty bad in the but this is a different Lakers team now that West Bloomfield is going to see. Livonia Stevens going to see in West Bloomfield. I think this is the first ever home game West Bloomfield's had. And that's saying something. You know what I mean? That's a huge success for Coach Ronald Bellamy and his Laker program. They're going to be nervous. They're going to be geeked. I mean, I think this is West Bloomfield's fourth home game this year. I really do. And they've been virtually road warriors all year. West Bloomfield. This is a team, in my opinion, that could do some damage in this game. I think they're going to make some noise in this district. No doubt this regional. When you're looking at it, I mean, Region 2, Division 1, it's going to be interesting because you got Clarkson Lapeer and that other one. And in that winner, no doubt it's going to get either Waterford Mott or Walled Lake Central. I mean, when you look at that game here with Walled Lake Central and Waterford Mott, I mean, like, that's a game, no doubt, I think that West Bloomfield can win that game. That they can win it. I mean, I think West Bloomfield's in a really good spot right now. No doubt, when you look at the Lakers, this is a team I think you got to keep an eye on heading into the playoffs, especially when you look at with what the Lakers have. I mean, like, you got this is a team game. This is a team I think they're going to do some damage. If they get upset in the playoffs in the district round, I'd be really disappointed. And then, of course, when you look at Waterford Mott, Walled Lake Western, or Walled Lake Central, excuse me. When I look at Mott, this is a team. They put 49 up. They give up a lot of points. I like Walled Lake Central in that game. I think they're at home. I think they're going to give them problems. I just think that Walled Lake Central, you got Nate Crum, the quarterback. He's going to do well in this game. I just think that in that game, but they're not going to see. They haven't seen a team what West Bloomfield's going to bring. They're going to bring a lot of pressure. They're going to bring a lot of They got speed. They're athletic. This is one of the best teams I think in the OAA, no doubt, this year is West Bloomfield. And of course, and the other one we're going to talk about is Region 2, District 1. You got Oxford taking on Clarkston. Oxford basically got sentenced here because of what happened was if Lake Orion would have gotten in the playoffs, I think Lake Orion would be the ones playing Clarkston. Or if Rochester Adams would have got in, they would have been the team playing Clarkston in the first round. Oxford, from bad luck, you know what I mean? This is a bad luck matchup for the Wildcats going up against the Wolves. This probably will likely be Glacier Wellington's last game as a Wildcat, unless some circumstances. They were blown out 42-14 this year by Clarkston, which that was rough to see on their homecoming over at Oxford. And then Clarkston, of course, are rolling right now. They had to survive Farmington Harrison last week. The key to that game is can Oxford slow the game down against Clarkston? And that's the key. If Oxford could slow the game down against Clarkston, then who knows? They could have a chance for an upset like they did last year. But this is two different teams. I mean, Clarkston's best team they had was last year. I mean, with this Clarkston team, of course, they're still a good team, but I'm not selling their defense, And then, of course, the other side of that district, you got Romeo at Lapeer. Lapeer coming in unbeaten. Of course, we know they beat Rochester pretty bad week 1. And then you got Romeo, a team that played in the MAC White this year. Big win was at Port Huron. They also beat Utica Eisenhower last week, which was a shocker. That gave me a head scratcher right there, was that one. And I look at that game, of course, Romeo beat Lake Orion last year in the playoffs. They beat them 24-21. I remember that game. Orion made a lot of mistakes in that game. Romeo's not the same team that they used to be. But they still have a quarterback in Paul Hurley. Lapeer, of course, this is the first year that Lapeer merged as known as one Lapeer, the Lapeer Lightning. They beat Rochester pretty bad. Lapeer's, and I think when you look at this game here, Lapeer, they've seen a lot of teams in the north. They've beaten, of course, they beat Midland Dow, Mount Pleasant. Big win at Flint Carmen Ainsworth. That was one of their huge wins. But playing teams in the south of Lapeer, I think, is going to be a huge, interesting challenge, especially south and east. Lapeer hasn't seen a team like a Utica Eisenhower or like a Romeo that's going to give them problems. Both teams, however, play on grass. Romeo does play their games at Dan Barnable Field, which is a grass stadium. Lapeer plays their games on grass. But I think when you look at this one, I don't think Lapeer has seen a team like Romeo. Romeo, I think, is going to give them problems in this one, no doubt, because, but if Lapeer somehow just goes in there and dominates Romeo, that wouldn't surprise me. And, and if they win that game, Lapeer does, that sets up a game at Clarkston. Could you just imagine how crazy that game would be? Lapeer at Clarkston. I mean, this Lapeer team, both Lapeer East, Lapeer West, they merged together. Very good teams. Both teams were good teams last year. Going up against Clarkston. I think Lapeer will score against Clarkston. I just don't think Lapeer is going to stop Clarkston. I mean, that game could be a wild and wacky game, in that game over there. But if there's one team, when you look at the regional outlook especially, I think if you look at West Bloomfield, possibly a West Bloomfield-Clarkston regional final, that would favor West Bloomfield, because West Bloomfield played at Clarkston. Eddie Wilson had not got thrown out. I think West Bloomfield beats Clarkston. That's what I think would have happened. And then when you look at that game, in the regional, there's no doubt in my mind that Clarkston escaped in that game. If those two teams play again, you might as well pick West Bloomfield. And then, of course, when you look at the other regional, you got a possible clash. I think when you look at the other side of the regional, I think that winner of that Southfield district, they're going to have a shot possibly at Birmingham Brother Ice. That's a game. I think when you look at that regional final, I think when you look at it, I think if Oak Park were to play Birmingham Brother Ice or Southfield were to play Birmingham Brother Ice, I'd be confident with them. I would take both of them over Birmingham Brother Ice. Oak Park especially, because Oak Park can play defense against Malzone. He can shut them down. They can really shut them down. There's no doubt about it. When you look at that game, my picks for the games, I'm gonna go with for Region 1 District 2, I'm gonna go Harrison knocks off Fenton. I like Harrison because of their athleticism. I like Southfield over Detroit Martin Luther King. I just think Southfield's got enough talent on the outside. Farmington Oak Park, I like Oak Park in that one because I think that Oak Park's ticked off, and I think they're going to take their anger out on Farmington. Groves and Berkeley, I like Groves because, remember, Groves, same thing as Oak Park. They lost 32-29. You got Livonia Stevenson, West Bloomfield. Got to go with the Lakers. First home game in the playoffs. They're going to be geeked. I think they're going to win and get on a good high note. And then you got Oxford Clarkston. I like Clarkston that one pretty bad over Oxford. It's not going to be pretty when you look at that game. Okay, now when we come back, we're going to talk volleyball. We're going to talk some soccer here on OAA Now.
Prescription drug abuse is a national epidemic. The new in way to obtain drugs is through parents' or grandparents' medicine chests. Removing prescriptions from your cabinet is the best way to keep drugs out of the hands of our young people. We've got to work together to protect our teens, our seniors, and our environment. Clean out your medicine cabinet today. Please participate in Operation Medicine Cabinet and drop off your unwanted or expired prescriptions at one of our law enforcement drop-off sites in Oakland County. We can't ignore this situation anymore.
Welcome back to OAA Now. I'm Sammy blogger of the Dragon's Den and one of the hosts of Between Terminus here on O1 TV. We got some interesting soccer preview. Of course, one OAA team is left there, and that's Rochester Adams. They play at 6:30 at Lake Orion tonight. They play Fraser. Of course, Fraser. They were a team that knocked off Troy Athens, of course, in the district final, and also they were a team that knocked off Bloomfield Hills. Bloomfield Hills was up 3-0 in that game, and Fraser found a way to win that game, 4-3. Of course, Adams, of course, taking the OAA path, of course, winning Lake Orion District. They knocked off Clarkston in the district final, so that was a huge win for Rochester Adams, and now they play with a chance to get to the state finals, which will be held at Brighton if they knock off Fraser tonight over at Lake Orion. That's my short soccer suite there. Of course, you got cross country this weekend. Of course, very impressed with Lake Orion winning the regional. You got Rochester also advancing there in both boys and girls. You got Clarkson also sending both their boys and girls teams there, which is very unique. But it'll be interesting. It'll be unique. Some of the top kids, will be there for cross country this weekend over at MIS, which is Michigan International Speedway, out in Brooklyn, Michigan. And we're going to go to a sport here called volleyball. When you look at volleyball this week, a lot of games slow down. You got tournaments. You got doing up right now. You got, of course, you got the Rochester City tournament coming up. I think that's happening this week, where you got Rochester Adams, Stony Creek, and Rochester Hills Lutheran Northwest. Those four teams are playing each other. I think that those teams are going to create some damage. I think the favorite in there is Stony Creek. I think they're going to win that. I think but you can't count out Adams. Adams has had a really nice 2 weeks. And then of course I look at the latest MICA rankings, which are out. Look at the latest MICA poll this week. Clarkson ranked number 4, Lake Orion ranked number 5. Kind of surprised that there's no Birmingham Seaholm on there. I think the league. I think MICA is really disrespecting Birmingham Seaholm, especially with the way that with what they're bringing to the party. You look at the rankings this week, no doubt. You got Novi, of course, top ranked team in the state. You got Temperance Bedford number 2. I don't think Bedford's really played anybody really impressive. I'm not impressed with. Clarkston number 3 in the state, which is kind of an odd situation. Looking at the record, 43-4-1. Grand Haven ranked 4th in the state. Orion, of course, 5. Birmingham Marion ranked 6. Farmington Hills Mercy 7. Grand Rapids Christian 8. Romeo 9. Matawan 10. I'm kind of surprised when I look at this poll, when I look at the rankings, no doubt. Seeing Seaholm there is not, it's kind of odd and disappointing. You got districts coming up next week. We're going to have a live OAA Now from Lake Orion High School. Of course, it's one of the toughest districts in the state. You got the Birmingham Marion district where they have Seaholm in there. Of course, you got some unique districts. Looking at the games, looking at the districts, when you look at a team, I think the easiest team that's going to have a nice draw is going to be Temperance Bedford because they're not going to see anybody tough. I think Novi and Northville is going to be a good battle, there. And then, of course, you got in that regional, of course, with Clarkson, Lake Orion, you're going to have to deal with You're going to deal with Romeo, who's 9th in the state. They're rolling right now because they got Gia Manila on that team. When you look at Romeo, or the MAC Red champions, they've done a very good job. They build a lot of success. When you look at these games, these type of games, when you look at them, it's not going to be easy, And then, of course, you got the Grand Blanc Invitational coming up this weekend, and that's going to be unique for a couple of these teams. But when I look at these districts around the around here for girls volleyball, no doubt, you got some interesting ones here when you look at them. When you look at them here, when you look at the districts here, of course, on the MHSAA website here, you look at games at Porter Central. Porter Central is going to be favored in District 1A. Of course, you got some. Well, the OAA teams in this district very unique. The first one we're going to go is District 21. Of course, when I look at that district, with Farmington and Southie in there, it's a tough matchup. It's a tough draw for them, basically. But we'll go over the previews about that. But last night, of course, Lake Orion had a 3-game sweep of Farmington Hills Mercy. Oh, sorry, a Farmington, correction, my bad. Farmington Hills Mercy had a game didn't have a game last night, but Lake Orion had a nice win over Farmington. It was expected. It was a makeup of one of the games that was actually postponed. And, as they get ready for Grand Blanc, I expect Clarkson to be there as well. We'll go over the volleyball previews on next week, live from Lake Orion High School. A lot of things here mentioned here as, of course, some of these, when you look at volleyball, it's going to be interesting. You know what I mean? When I look at the final 2 weeks of the regular season, things have slowed down a lot. You had a Kensington Lakes championship, had the Catholic League championship game. I always get to ask a question is, do you want to have an OA championship to determine who is the best team in the league? Do you think you should divide the league up into four sixes? I don't know about that. Would it be an interesting dynamic? Absolutely. But you never know when you look at some of these games. No doubt, you got a lot of these games are actually good games, but you're seeing a lot of these teams play in different tournaments. There's sometimes, I don't believe the latest Mika poll at all. You know what I mean? Looking at it, it's kind of an odd thing, but when you look at the situation as it is, it's a tough situation, especially coming into the to the season that you look at Harrison. Look at a team like a Clarkston. Of course, they're 43-4-1. I do question some of these coaches putting in their records. One team, out in Grand Rapids Christian, they don't put their record in, but they're a good team. They're a pretty good team. Once again, we'll go over the previews on Monday. Of course, we'll preview each individual district, how the OA teams are going to fare. A team that I probably have some concerns about is Hazel Park, of course, very inexperienced team. There, they had an experienced team last year. Ferndale, same boat. They're in Division 2. But let's see what happens coming up there. Of course, swimming has got they got their state meet coming up at the at Oakland University, which is going to be very interesting. I think that's next weekend, I think. But also, and that's it for fall sports. I mean, you got the state playoffs, that's going to end around Thanksgiving. They play on the final day of Thanksgiving. And when I look at the teams in football that I think have a good shot to winning the state title, you got to go with Clarkston. Obviously, they got a good chance to repeat. You also got to go with West Bloomfield. They got a good chance, to spoil some people that are the dark horse. And then, of course, Division II, you got them. And, of course, in Division II, a lot of people say Birmingham Brother Rice is going to win the title. You know what I mean? There's nobody there that can beat Birmingham Brother Rice. I think it's a lie. I think it's a total lie. I think when you look at it here, I think that Birmingham Brother Rice is, I think they're going to have problems, especially with Oak Park or Southfield if they play them. I'm not sure about Martin Luther King if they'll give Birmingham Brother Rice anything, but I know Southfield and Oak Park will give them a game for sure. And then of course you got to look at on the other side. You got Caledonia and you got Muskegon Mona Shores. Those two games. I think when you look at them, I just think that that those two teams are gonna have problems. When you look at the final games of the season, you know what I mean. And of course, looking at the OA season as a whole, I thought it was a unique season. You know what I mean? It was the and of course my final Dragon's Den rankings are out. You can take a look at them. You can take a look at them on the Dragon's Den on the Dragon's Den blog here. I posted them up for you. Of course, their final rankings here. Got number 10 is Rochester Adams. Number 9 is Berkeley. Number 8, Farmington. Number 7, Groves. Number 6, Oxford. Number 5, Southfield. Number 4, Harrison. Number 3, Oak Park. Number 2, West Bloomfield. Number 1, Clarkston. And you could take a look on my insights here of how everybody went and the scores here. And of course, I advise you all to check everything out. You know what I mean? Got Lake Orion, some lost to Rochester Adams. You got my picks from the regular season. So it is what it is. We'll see what happens. I'm heading in there. I will have a volleyball preview coming up on the blog. You could take a look at it here from the Dragon's Den site. And also, stay tuned to OAA Now for latest coverage, especially coming in because you're going to have a very unique volleyball tournament coming up on Monday, starting on Monday. I'm trying to find out pre-district matchups for everybody. So we'll see what happens there. Okay, now for final thoughts here. My final thoughts, it's going to be an interesting tournament, interesting football playoffs. A lot of history not there. You got nobody Detroit Catholic Central, no Lake Orion, no they're both out this year. I expect them both teams to do extremely well next year. I think that they're going to have motivational years. No Adams, no Stony Creek. I expect Adams to be back next year. I think they're the favorites in white next year. And, of course, you got volleyball coming up. You got volleyball tournaments starting on Monday. You got the pre-districts. Of course, we will be at Lake Orion High School covering. Of course, you got the Stony Creek Rochester Adams game there, and that winner plays Clarkston. And then you got Lake Orion playing Rochester, and that winner's going to play Oxford. You got the semis is next Wednesday, 5 and 7, respectively, and the finals will be on Friday at 7 o'clock. Of course, yours truly will be announcing those games for sure, and also you'll have complete full coverage of the Lake Orion District on the Dragon's Den blog. And also you get my thoughts also on the other districts around the area. You got previews from Troy, Birmingham, Marion. You got Wall Lake Northern. You got gotta figure out here where you got Groves, and also you got I gotta figure out where Ferndale's at, but you'll get the idea. You know what I mean? You guys get the idea. You can visit the Dragon's Den blog. I have them at www.saginawbay.blogspot.com for your latest information on the blog. Okay, now everybody, I'm gonna sign out here for tonight. Here, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Sammy Termina. I'm signing out.
OAA Now is produced at Orion Neighborhood Television, Lake Orion's community media outlet. To learn more about ONTV, visit our website at www.orionontv.org or call us at 248-393-1060.